Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And today we have a really interesting guest. Dave the Mystic is here today to talk to us about, how to clear your energy and how to get entities out of your house. And this is going to be a really, really interesting show. He's got a really wonderful background. But before I bring him on, I've been talking about the state of humanity. And I pulled a couple things off the internet this morning that I wanted to share with you guys. And the first thing is last night, there was a magnitude 7.5 earthquake in Alaska. And there was also a small tsunami. And this is from CNN, and it said the magnitude 7.5 earthquake near Sandpoint, Alaska generated a tsunami. And Scott Langley with the National Tsunami Warning Center said Monday afternoon, Langley said that the tsunami sent two waves, each measuring 4 feet 3 inches high. But observers on shore reported the waves appeared to be more like 2 feet over the tide. So prayers to the people out there in Alaska. That's really interesting that they've had such a huge earthquake. Now, I don't think anybody was injured, but it was a big one. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I always like to throw out some good news. And the good news is the birds in San Francisco started singing differently in the silence of the pandemic shutdown. Now, listen to this. When the roads emptied of traffic in March and April because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Bay Area residents reported hearing more birds, and they were halfway right. Jennifer Phillips, a researcher at Cal Poly, and Elizabeth Derryberry, a professor at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, collaborated to evaluate whether and how songbirds responded to the quieter environment with much less traffic. But the bottom line is the researchers found that the birds responded by producing softer songs that could travel over a larger distance, unimpeded by noise. The urban songs also became sexier, they say, in terms of vocal performance, meaning the birds sang a wider range of notes in their songs in a wider bandwidth during the shutdown. That's some interesting stuff, guys. Hey, listen, before I bring Dave the Mystic on, I want to mention I do psychic readings. And I really haven't promoted myself that much, but I'm doing them full time now. So if you go to my website, nancyyearout.com, you can sign up for either a 30-minute appointment or an hour appointment with me. And if you mention High Road to Humanity, I will give you a 20% discount. So that's for all my High Road to Humanity listeners, okay? Now, Dave the Mystic is here. His name is Dave Barnett, and he's an energy healer. He's an intuitive. He's got over 35 years experience. He's in Colorado. He has multiple technical degrees. He's truly a rocket scientist. In the early 1980s, Dave had some turning points in his life, and it led to a passion in discovering and developing his gifts in multiple forms of energy healing. Now, Dave has gifts in healing, reading the Akashic records, energy and entity clearing, changing core beliefs, and discerning spiritual gifts. Dave continually seeks out new modalities, learns and experiences from them and the practitioners, frequently highlighting these on his weekly web radio show. He's got a radio show, you guys, and I've been on, and it's awesome. And he has 480 episodes so far. Hey, Dave, welcome to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to be here.
I'm glad you're here today. Can you give us some more of your background? I mean, you're an electrical engineer, you've got a master's in bioengineering. How did you get from all of that to doing energy healing? Tell the audience, please.
Sure. Well, as a child, I became very interested in electronics in 5th grade. And I ended up being the neighborhood whiz kid who was taking apart TVs, fixing radios, building circuits, going to science fairs with things. I was a ham radio operator in junior high, and that was pretty much self-taught. My parents divorced when I was in 6th grade, and so my dad wasn't around. And along in that time frame, my mom also got very interested in astrology, and she kind of went with a friend to have a reading as a lark, and the reading had so much evidential material in it that she went from thinking, well, this is just kind of a funsy thing, to she had to learn how to do it. And so when I was in junior high and high school, being the youngest of my three brothers and myself,
Hmm.
I became sort of her partner in trying out different things psychically.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I was open to it. I didn't pursue it in college much, but the turning point came at my 10th high school reunion. I ran into an old friend, and he asked if I'd become an electrical engineer like I expected. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you think it's possible to change things at a distance, remotely, without, any influence? And he kept beating around the bush, very, very odd questions. And he wouldn't tell me what was going on, but he said, well, let's go over to my house. I want to show you some things. And we went to his house, and he gave me a number of demonstrations that where he could just sort of point at something and say now, and it would change its behavior.
Like change the
He could,
voltage is what you're saying?
well, it was stranger than that. The first demo was, we walked up to the electric meter on the side of his house, and he said, do you have an idea of the rate of the wheel? And the wheel spins at a speed that's proportional to how much power you're using at that time. And so I said, do you have an idea of the rate of the wheel? And I said, sure. And he points at it and he goes, now. And it slowed by a third.
Wow.
And he said, I did this to my mother's house several months ago, and her bills are still lower.
Oh my God. I need this to come to my house. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we all do. And we went inside, and he had a little black and white TV on rabbit ears,
Yeah.
and he turned it on and put it on a non-channel, so it's just snow. And he points at the TV and says now, and tunes in a station.
Oh my gosh.
And he gave me a demonstration on his stereo. He was a disc jockey at that time at an FM station, and
Right.
a very nice stereo, and it had the VU meter needles, and they go up when it's louder and down when it's
Right.
softer for the left and right channels.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, do you see how they're moving with the music? And I said, sure. And he points at it and goes, now, and they go out of phase. So when the music goes louder, the needle goes down. And when the music
Okay.
goes softer, the needle goes up. And this is kind of weird. And he's totally reliable with this stuff. Every time he goes for a demonstration or an effect, it works.
So that
So
must have
the next,
just freaked you out.
well, it was kind of bring up the hair on the back of my neck a little bit.
Yeah.
And we went out to his car and sat in it, and it was idling. And this was before computers. He had an old enough car. This is in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And so the car is idling, and he just kind of points at it and goes, now. And he could slow down the idle to the point where the car was stalling. And he said, I
Whoa.
can stall other cars in traffic.
Oh my goodness.
And the final demo that day was, we went down to his radio station, 50,000 watt FM station, and we went in the back room where they have the status meters that show a technician how the transmitter's working, make sure it's perfectly aligned. And they had a digital panel meter that was reading 99.6%, and that was 99.6% of the total 50,000 watts out the antenna. And he said, I can lower the power. I can't do it too much or I'll trip it off the air. He said, I have tripped it off the air.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he said, you have an idea of what it's doing? I said, sure. And he points at it and goes, now. And it drops to 99.2. Well, 0.4% of 50,000 watts is a whole lot of power to control with just thinking, just your mind power. And over the years, we've come up with other demos where he's changed, like a ceiling fan in my kitchen, its behavior where it was oscillating and vibrating because it's out of balance. He was
Right.
able to affect that from now he was in Wichita, I was in Denver. And but the upshot of it was, I came back from that trip, and I said, there's a whole lot more to life and physics than what I've learned in electrical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And I really started digging in, and I took a whole lot of training in therapeutic touch, which is one of the energy healing modalities. And I took psychic development classes and met three wonderful women, and we met every 2 weeks on a Thursday night for a couple of years, trying different things.
Okay.
And so that's very helpful. I joined a group that was learning how to channel Tibetan Ascended Masters.
Nice.
So I was still the electrical engineer during the day, working on rockets and satellites. And then after hours, I was doing healing work. And I managed to keep those worlds separate. So I didn't make people uneasy at work that, I was doing weird stuff that needed to, somebody needed to say something. So
Right, right.
a lot of my friends joke about me being Superman and Clark Kent, and so Clark Kent was the engineer during the day, and then Superman was what I did after hours.
Well, and I think what you do is really awesome. And you clear from a distance. You can clear people. And I've had a session with you. You were recommended
Yeah.
to me by one of my guests on my show, Maureen St. Germain, and you've been on Coast to Coast. And
Mhm.
so I know you've been doing this work for a while, and it's very rewarding that you're able to help so many people, and you do it from a distance. Talk to me about why. And I know why, because I know why you clear from a distance, but tell the audience the benefits of why you clear
Yeah.
from a distance.
Several things. Number one is I really don't want to give the entities that I'm clearing an opportunity to try to attach to me.
Right.
I've had one or two clearing experiences where some people wanted to be cleared face to face, and basically they were set up by some dark entities to try to trap me, to
Oh, wow.
provide an opportunity for things to get on me. So,
That was one of the
so
questions
that's
I was
number
going to
one.
ask you. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to ask you that. Has anything ever attached to you, or you've been able to prevent that?
No, I have extensive protection in the spiritual plane of different beings, and they take care of me and keep me safe
Okay.
and keep me armored up, so to speak.
Okay, to make sure that they don't attach. And then, and that way, when you are doing it, they don't know that you're coming. It's kind of the element of surprise.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. They don't get any advance notice I'm doing the clearing,
Right.
and the other one of the big advantages is I can clear anywhere in the world, and I can keep this very economical. I know there's some people who, when they clear, they show up with maybe the paranormal investigator, maybe a medium, and they
Hmm.
want to walk around your house maybe during the day and in the evening, and
Right.
um, that all adds up to it's a costly exercise. And
Right.
if I can do it in a series of 3 phone calls where first phone call we decide what's there and fill out a form, second phone call I give you the results of the clearing, and third phone call is a recheck. uh, I keep it very reasonable,
That's,
and
I know, and that's
I can do it
wonderful.
anywhere. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Hey, when we come back we got to go to commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the different kind of entities that you clear, because I find that really fascinating. Hey, you guys, I'm here today with Dave the Mystic. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here with Dave Barnett, Dave the Mystic. And Dave, we were talking about, you have a worksheet. We're talking about the entities, and I know I printed it out here. I was looking for it. You have different ones that you can clear. And can you talk about that? Because I pulled this worksheet because this is for people, you guys, if you want to go on his website, davethemystic.com, you can clear earthbound spirits, demons, dark entities, curses, elementals. This is just list goes on and on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. When I first started getting involved in clearing, I had somebody call me when I was in Las Vegas on vacation,
Okay.
and she said, I have stuff in my house. I can't talk to my husband about it. He's not open to it.
Oh,
And it's a second marriage, and his teenage stepdaughter lives with us. She would use this as an excuse to run home to her mother. So I can't bring this up, but I have witches flying out of closets that our two little toddlers are seeing, or like small children. And she said, there's something that walks up behind me and says my name. I'm laying in bed and something comes over and pushes down on the covers.
yeah.
she said, we got a great deal on the house. Nobody would tell us why until after we moved in. We found out that the previous owner, an elderly man who's somewhat of a recluse, had hanged himself in the basement.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'll take a stab at it. She was a friend of a friend of a friend who found me.
Right.
And I
The people who
successfully
find
cleared.
you need to find you. Isn't that interesting, Dave? I love
It
that.
is. It is.
Okay. Continue on, sir.
I'm one of those people, if I go into a store that's empty to get a soft drink or something, by the time I'm ready to cash out, there's 8 people in line behind me.
Oh my
So
gosh.
somehow there's an energy there that just brings
Yeah.
in people. And
Right.
so they find me one way or another. Uh,
So were you able to help her? Were you able to clear the
yes.
house? Yeah.
Yeah, the first clearing worked, and I was just kind of winging it. And
Yeah.
then we talked about 2 weeks later. She says he's starting to show up again. And
Oh.
one of the gifts that I had when I did a lot of development work between 2003 and 2007 was I was shown how to go down to people's hells. I don't believe that there is an objective hell, where
Like a
God
place.
would send you. No,
Right.
but if you die and in your psychology you believe in hell, you have an image of what hell looks like, and you think you should be there, the Creator says yes, and
Okay.
you will create your own hell, and you'll be tortured, punished, whipped, whatever, and until you finally reach a point after a couple hundred years where you say, is this all there is, forever and ever? And an angel will step in and say, this is your illusion. You could have stopped
Mhm.
it at any time. You could have tapped your heels together and said, there's no place like home, and gone right to the spiritual plane.
Right.
Um, but I was shown a way, and I was asked to develop a technique to convince these people that it is an illusion and get them back to the spiritual plane. So I started doing that extensively. And that particular tool came in helpful because I found that the guy who committed suicide was in his own self-created hell, but he still had a connection to the house.
I see.
So I got him out of there, got him back to the spiritual plane, and all the phenomena stopped. And
Right.
so that kind of kicked me off. And so um, starting around 2007, 2008 was when I started doing the clearings. And I thought I need to come up with a systematic system and a form. I know there's a lot of people out there do clearings, and basically they have 2 categories. It's earthbound spirits, people who've died who are still hanging around.
Mhm.
They didn't go to the spiritual plane. And then
Right.
another group that I'll just loosely call dark entities. And I thought there's got to be more differentiation there, and I also wanted to just stay open to finding other things that are a problem for people. So
Right.
I started out with this worksheet, and the original worksheet had about 4 or 5 columns, and then over time I kept adding columns as I routinely ran into things. And so I work with connections to past lives that need to be released karmically. I work with entities from other vibrational planes that come and just watch us and lurk.
Mhm.
Um, I work with elementals, which are nature spirits that have artificially been grown by somebody doing dark magic to be
Oh.
bigger and more powerful. And they may take the most powerful ones with them and leave the rest running around. Now they're aware of people, they're aware of our reality, and they don't know where they belong. So
Okay.
they can get into houses and cause problems. So
Right.
move them on. So lots of different ways, energy cords, many things are on my chart to essentially get people squeaky clean,
Right.
and that leads to the second part of the process, which is also telling people how to stay protected and giving them protection tools.
Right. Well, and two things I want to ask you here. One is, and I'm in New Mexico, I'm from New Mexico. The
Mm,
Native Americans always use white sage. I was taught years ago, like you, I was a real estate broker, but then I did my spiritual stuff on the side. It was this kind of similar to what you're talking about. Keep the
hmm
two worlds separate, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want people to think you're nuts. But anyway, even though we know we're not. So I cleared, but I read in your information that clearing with sage doesn't really work so much anymore. Can you talk about that a second? I found that fascinating.
Yeah, if we go back to 2012, whether or not you think it was the end of the world according to the Mayan calendar, 2012 was a major shift in vibration. It was a major impulse to people. Um, if you look at one way, it's a major opportunity that there's so much energy that you can use this to grow and expand and reach higher vibrational levels. And
Right.
whether you think there's going to be an ascension or a movement to 5D, the energy is there. that energy also got into the dark entities, and the dark entities started showing up in force and much stronger. And what I've been finding is uh, sage may make you feel good, may make the space feel good. Um, if it drives out the entities, and that's a big if, they might just go outside and wait a day or two and come back in when the vibration comes back down. And this is true for feng shui or gongs or burning alcohol and Epsom salts in a skillet.
Okay.
All these different types of techniques. They just
They
they
hang
they
out and
don't
they
have.
come back.
They hang out. They come back.
What can we do to protect ourselves, Dave, for people out there who feel like, and I lived by a lake for a while, and I know a lot of entities are by a lake, and I was constantly saging. What can somebody do? What do you suggest? Tell the audience if they feel like they've got some bad energy in the house.
Um, well, the protections I give people really work best after you've cleared.
Okay.
So it's kind of like if you have cockroaches in the house, there's not much you can do to get all the cockroaches out.
Right.
And so you want to have the cockroaches cleared, and then you want to take the advice of the exterminators, say, okay, what can I do to keep them from re-entering? And this may be something around the perimeter. It may be other things that make your place less desirable than, say, a neighbor's house for where the cockroaches will return to.
Okay.
I work with all of this clearing the same way, where we clear the house, we get everything. When I do a clearing, I clear the building, I clear any detached buildings like garages or sheds, I clear all the people who routinely live there, the pets, the vehicles. So the place, from my point of view, is squeaky clean.
Gotcha.
And part of my clearing process is I put a crystalline box around the whole property.
Okay.
And I do that during the clearing to contain the things that are there so they can't escape and then try to return.
Okay.
And then when I'm done and they're all gone, I leave the box in place around the property, and I put mirroring on the outside of it. I found that mirroring over the years is very effective, whether it's physical or
It
energetic.
deflects. It deflects if you put
It
mirror.
deflects dark
Right.
entities.
Right.
They don't like to approach it and see the truth about themselves, so they avoid mirrors.
Okay.
And so that's how I avoid things coming back on the property. And for the people who are clear, I also have a mirror technique for them
Right.
to keep them clear.
Right.
So if you want to work on something that would be much more effective than sage, I would just say, view a column of white light from the creator, from the universe, whatever your belief system is,
Mhm.
coming down into your heart center, forming a great big powerful like nuclear reactor of white light there, and then expanding it through your body to drive these things out of your body, and then expanding it through your residence and then through the rest of your property.
Right.
And then set the intention that that's going to remain in place to force most of this out.
Oh, yeah. And I agree with that. I just want to stop you a second. I bring the white
Yeah.
light in through my crown chakra, through my body. I've
Mhm.
talked about it on the show many times, and I do
Yeah.
that daily. I bring in the light of God. I always ask, what color do I need today? Because I've learned that you can heal with color. And so I try to bring a color down too, to do that. One thing you mentioned, we've only got a couple minutes to break, but another thing you mentioned that people don't think so much about is pets. These
Yeah.
entities can attach to pets. Can you address that real quick for us?
Yeah, pets, animals, farm animals, your favorite horse, your favorite dog, your favorite cat, your goldfish, as a service to you to protect their owner, so to speak. They may take on these entities, and I deliberately clear pets because sometimes pets can take on so many that it pulls down their energy system,
Ah,
and it can cause illness.
okay.
We know pets are very sensitive. If you look at your dog or cat and they're looking up at a upper corner of the room, and they got a big smile on their face, so to speak, there's probably an angel hanging out up there saying, "Oh, good doggy, you're such a nice little
Okay,
guy." And the
okay.
dog's going, "Yes, yes, I love you."
Okay.
And wagging his tail, and you're just sitting there, what the heck?
What is
What's
going,
the
yeah,
dog see in that corner of the room?
Yeah, because that's happened. And I'm like, what is she? I have a cat. And I'm like, what is she looking at? But I always think like you do. I think, oh, maybe it's just an
Mhm.
angel and she sees it and I can't see it. So that's pretty interesting. Hey, listen, we got to go to commercial break. But you guys, I'm here today with Dave the Mystic. And Dave, tell people, how can they get in touch with you? How do they set up an appointment with you?
The best approach is just go to www.davethemystic.com, and there's a little email thing on there where you can just send me an email inquiry, and please include your phone number and your time zone and best times to contact you. And I'll contact you personally, set up an appointment. I don't have an automatic scheduling thing on
Okay.
my website.
Okay, cool. All right, you guys, we're here today with Dave the Mystic. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. You know, Dave, I want to talk to you about heaven and hell and the spiritual plane. And, you know, people are in a position where humanity is like at a turning point, and people are either going one way, it seems like, or the other. What's your take on this right now, on the situation that's going on in the
Yeah.
world? I'm curious.
Yeah, I truly feel that there are several layers of higher vibrational Earths around us where people physically exist, and where people, I think, are already being moved off of our vibrational level here and moved to those. And
Okay.
I think when they're moved, they do it two ways. They they take advantage of natural disasters, and they can move a lot of people. So these strange things where we have a major tsunami in Asia, and 100,000 people are dead, and they might find 2,000 bodies and say, well, I guess the rest are just lost. Well, I think it's a smoke screen for moving a lot of people
Where are
uh,
they moving them to? I'm a little,
to higher vibrational, higher realities of Earth
okay.
that are different vibrational level than ours. And
Okay.
so some of those people may go with their memories intact about where they were. Others may sort of get a fresh start. I believe the same thing is also happening. A family might have four kids, and one day they wake up, all the pictures in the house show three children. Their whole collective memory is three children. That one of those four children moved to another vibrational level, and the records were adjusted, so to speak.
Is this what Jesus talked about, where different people would be taken up in the Bible?
Possibly.
You know what I'm
He
talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he worked with an audience that had such a different perspective on life and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he probably did the best he could in terms of trying to talk about what he was seeing. But I do see that, and just
Interesting.
as I mentioned, I think hell is an illusion.
Right.
I
That we
think
create ourselves.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think the same thing happens with the concepts of limbo or purgatory.
Okay.
Um, there's a whole lot of your psychology. So you have multiple lifetimes, and but your current lifetime is going to be sort of the psychology impact, the psychological view, how you present yourself when you return to the spiritual plane. And if you have a view, say you're a radical Islamic fundamentalist, and you have those views, when you go to the spiritual plane, you may end up with a group of like minded people who all hold those views,
I see.
even though generically the spiritual plane may very much view those views as being sort of backwards and not realistic about what the true nature of the creator is. And the same can be said, for fundamentalist Christians or Orthodox Jews, others. Um, if they really care that psychology and they are not ready to talk to anybody about a different view, they are, it's look, this is what I learned on earth, and this is what God should look like, and that's where I'm going to be.
Oh, gotcha.
Uh, you may be in a community of like-minded people until you mature and you're open to hearing, I'll say, a more open view, a more prophetic, I shouldn't say prophetic, but a more
A different way to
detailed
look
view
at
of what the
things.
creators, yeah, a
Yeah.
more higher vibration way of looking at things.
Gotcha.
And so if you if you're not very far along on this planet, you might go to the spiritual plane, but you might be, there are areas up there that are very dark, very gray,
Hmm.
because the people don't know any better. They don't know to ask to be in a higher place within heaven. And so they're in these places that look very much like those dark things that you saw in that Robin Williams movie where um, he dies in a car wreck and he's trying to
Yeah,
save his wife who commits suicide. And they see
right.
people who are in the mud up to their heads, and they're just puzzled. They don't know what to make out of this. They don't have a concept to take them farther spiritually at that point.
Right. I just feel like we have an opportunity right now. I guess that's why I do the show. And I know you do a wonderful radio show. We're going to talk about
Hmm.
that in a minute too. But I feel like the more people I can talk to about these things, maybe they open their mind up a little bit more to the spiritual side of things. What do you think? Do you think with the COVID-19, I don't know. Do you think that's a good? I feel like people were meant to stay home and kind of regroup and start to realize what's more important
Hmm.
in life. What do you feel about
Oh, very, very much.
that? Okay.
I think it's important. One of the things I offer people is I have a book list that's categorized,
Okay.
and there are books there on reincarnation. There are books there on what the spiritual plane looks like, what's after death,
Hmm.
and if people want to just send me an email and just say book list, please, or just book list, I'd be happy to send that book list to
What's
people,
your
and then
email
they
address, Dave?
the one to use for that is D Barnett, DBARNETT, at holistic, HOLISTIC, beliefs.com.
Okay.
And but they can do it through the website too.
Right.
If they
Right.
go on the email or on the website, they just in the subject line just put book list, and I'd be happy to send a book list to you. And it's 3 or 4 pages, and they're categorized, and they're all books that I can recommend.
Right.
So.
Well, and I want to mention that you help me because I'm intuitive, but have become more intuitive over the last few years. The more you do this work, the more you meditate, the more you get into it, it seems like you attract more and more. And I have entities come to me all the time and want to go to the
Hmm.
light. And I called you and said, Dave, did that really happen? Just because when you're psychic, no, it's true, you feel it and you know it. And I'm bringing this up because I know other people have this happen and I don't want people to think they're crazy. um,
Hmm.
I have it happen, and it's nice to have confirmation. You can be psychic, but it's hard to read yourself.
Yeah, yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
And it- another block that sort of goes along with that, I do a lot of core belief things on subconscious core beliefs, and a lot of those go back to other lifetimes.
Okay.
And many, many people who are finding their gifts coming online now, they've had past lifetimes where they've been persecuted, maybe executed, hanged as a witch, whatever,
For
burned.
speaking up.
Uh, for speaking up or for using their gifts. Maybe
Right.
they were just an herbal healer and they were contrary to the church. Um, Maybe they were doing other things. Now, some of them, sure, yeah, they may have been fairly evil people, and but the vast
Mhm.
majority of them were just falsely accused. And if you bring that thinking in your subconscious to this lifetime, and you find yourself, wow, I'm really gifted and clairvoyantly, I'm seeing entities. It's like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I can't tell anybody that because next thing there'll be a knock in the middle of the night and I'll be arrested.
Right.
And so I work with people on changing those core beliefs because those really do get in the way for a lot of people developing their gifts.
Well, yeah, and it's true because, and then you wonder, okay, I know I did this, and I know this person was here, but it's nice to have confirmation. And I just wanted to say that too. You really helped me, and I know you've helped a lot of people. You do this work, and you don't charge a ton of money, and I want to commend you for that, because a lot of times when people, like you were talking, they think they have an entity in the house and they bring in this team, and it's like astronomical for them to afford to even do this.
Yeah.
So what you
Hmm.
do is such a gift to people. I mean, you do, I believe in the yin and the yang. You have to make money
Yeah.
doing this, but you don't have to charge a fortune to get it done. And I just wanted to thank you for that. You also talk about, and I read some of your stuff about mirror gazing and trance mediumship, that you have to be careful of that kind of stuff. Can you address that? Because I don't know a ton about it, but
Yeah.
I saw it in your notes.
Yeah. If you look at mirrors, well, the technical term for reading a crystal ball is scrying,
Right.
and it's sort of the root word. It goes back, every day we use the word describe. Describe comes from the word scrying.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
when we
All
describe
right.
something, it's how did we get that information?
Okay.
People don't use crystal balls now. They use a flat plate of something dark, typically obsidian that's polished,
Hmm.
and they look into that. And some people I know who just look into dark formica. That does it for them too.
Wow.
Um, any of those techniques, they could, if you don't set your intentions and you don't discern, they could connect you to the astral plane. And there's a lot of entities that are somewhere between annoying and very dark, hanging out in the astral plane.
Okay.
You don't want to connect to those. There's no value or really significant purpose for connecting those. You want to connect to high vibrational beings and spiritual planes. So you sort of almost need to develop a little script that, in this, in my work today, I'm going to connect to the spiritual plane or higher. I'm only going to work with high vibrational beings for the highest and best good. Those types of words, whatever's comfortable to you,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't accidentally open up a portal that goes to the astral plane and start letting these entities come through. Although we think the book is being kind of humorous and satire in Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll,
Mm-hmm.
there are people who have opened up mirrors to other realms and brought through things.
Right.
And so you need to be careful. And mediumship is the same way.
Right.
When you when you are in either a full trance mediumship or conscious trance mediumship, and you are allowing an entity to use your body to communicate with others,
Mm-hmm.
you really need to have your intentions in place so that you don't allow some crumb bum to come into you, and maybe you will have a hard time kicking them out.
Right.
And
Right.
it could start to look a little bit like schizophrenia. You can't get rid of the voice in your head.
Right. Well, yeah. And I always say, may the light of God surround me. May the power of God protect me wherever I am, God is, before I do anything. And I put white light around myself to make sure that I'm protected before I do anything like a reading or anything like that for anybody. When we come back, we're getting ready to go to commercial break. I want to talk about your radio show because you have an awesome radio
Okay,
show. All right.
thank you.
So, yes, you guys, this is Nancy Yearout. I'm here today with Dave the Mystic. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. We are so blessed today to be here with Dave the Mystic. Dave, let's talk about your radio show. You have a radio show on Blog Talk Radio. It is Dave the Mystic. It's on Monday nights. Is that right? At 8 o'clock
Yes.
p.m.?
Monday
Okay.
nights, 8 o'clock, Denver time, which is Mountain Time.
Awesome.
Mountain Time is between Pacific Time and Central Time. A lot of people don't know from other parts of the country. Wow, we have 4 time zones in this country. I thought it was just 3.
Well, why'd you decide to do a podcast? I know why I did it. Talk to me about why you did it.
Well, gosh, back about 2010, I had 2 different companies call me saying, "Gee, Dave, we'd really like to have you host a radio show." Oh, well, that sounds good. Yeah, and we'll record a series of 8. Okay, and we'll get advertisers. That's great. And all you need to do is pay us $5,000, and then we'll take
What?
that money from the advertisers and pay you back the 5,000. And it's like, yeah, what are the odds that somebody with no presence on the radio is going to attract advertisers that are going to cover that 5,000?
Mm.
Probably not very good. In a series of 8 shows, and I mentioned this to somebody, and they said, "Well, Dave, why would you pay to be on when you can do it for free through Blog Talk Radio?"
Right.
And at that time, Blog Talk Radio was just getting started, and so you could be in the evening on prime time. You could have an hour show, and it was all free. And
Yeah.
I did it for free for several years, and then they got enough people signed up, and then they started charging a monthly fee,
Yeah.
which is still fairly nominal.
Right.
And so I just started doing it, and I just wanted to get out there. I sort of viewed it. I grew up in Wichita, where there still isn't a whole lot of metaphysical work or bookstores, or pretty quiet, because it's kind of the north end of the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, if I lived in Western Kansas, say in Dodge City or Garden City or any of those places, where would I get information on readers. How do you do readings? How do you get healings?
Mm-hmm.
What are the healing systems that people are downloading? What does it look like to have mediumship? All these different things. I thought,
Right.
where would somebody go for those resources? And so I just started building on that, that there's going to be people in a lot of corners of the world who have no access to the big city type of metaphysical bookstores or experiences. And I just wanted to uh, kind of be out there and help people have access to this. And so
Right.
I'm approaching my 500th show. And
Wow.
yeah, in fact,
Yeah.
that's gonna be on December 7th. So Pearl Harbor Day will be my
Oh,
500th
wow.
show.
Wow. That's so
I'm looking
awesome.
forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, I was on his show, and he has you can call in, and it's really cool if you want to ask questions, and it's just a really, really neat show. And I wanted to bring that up because I think it's wonderful work that you do. Um, I want to talk about a couple more things. You mentioned talking about, I don't know how I heard this, or maybe I heard it on a talk show, but you were saying that Edison had tried to develop a way to communicate with the spirits way back when. And so,
Hmm.
can you talk a little bit about that and your communication with the spirits now?
Yeah. Well, Edison loved all the new upcoming technology. Big things happened when they found that they could produce a vacuum in a glass envelope. And that led to the first realizable light bulbs that had lifetime. Edison didn't invent the light bulb, but he perfected it. And it took him about 1,000 trials to find the right combination of filament materials and currents
Mm-hmm.
and things to make a light bulb that would work. And he did the record player and the phonograph and wax recordings, and then he got into making movies and
Mm-hmm.
just a whole lot of things. And a whole bunch of people back then were just saying, what do we do with these new vacuum tubes? For the first time we have electronic amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
They can be very sensitive. They can make a small signal big, which is what an amplifier does. And Edison thought that, well, there's all this talk because, again, keep in mind, he's right in the middle of all the mediumship craze. The mediumship really kicked off in the 1840s with the Fox sisters. It got a
Okay.
big boost in the Civil War when so many people lost their sons in battle, and in
Okay.
many cases never had their remains returned. And they wondered, how
What
did they die?
happened?
Did they know we loved them? What happened?
Right. Right.
And so mediumship really got a big boost there, and the spiritualism movement and spiritualist church really moved forward from that. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you have Edison writing on that crest. Same time that Harry Houdini's writing on that crest, trying to debunk them because
Oh,
uh, he thought it was real, but there were so many flim flam artists out there faking mediumship that he was going around showing that their special effects were all rigged.
that's
And
how we got a bad name, isn't it? That's how
yeah,
psychics and mediums really got a bad name.
yeah. When it's one thing to help people with grief, it's another thing to prey on people with grief.
Right.
And
Right.
a lot of the mediumship, the basic idea of mediumship is that the person is a conduit from the spiritual plane to the people here in the physical.
Right.
And so that's what mediumship is. And so in most cases, maybe not most, but many cases, people are in a grieving process and they want to connect with a loved one, and
Mm-hmm.
and they want to make sure the loved one's okay. That maybe they have things that they said to the loved one or the loved one said to them that they both regret, and
Right.
they'd like to clear that up as the loved one moves forward into the spiritual plane.
Right.
So so the mediumship is that type of thing. So
Well, I want to
um,
bring up, I want to stop you a second because
yeah.
I always feel like, my dad has passed and my sister's passed, and
Hmm.
I'll find a penny or I'll hear a song that reminds me of them. And that's how I know, that's my confirmation that
Hmm.
they're around. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Finding coins with a significant date on them. So if you lose somebody and then you start noticing pennies in your house, out on the sidewalk, pick them up and look at the date. There might be some numerology thing with the date that is
Okay.
meaningful to you.
Hmm.
It's very easy for people in the spiritual plane to affect electronics. They can make watches stop. They can make kitchen timers go off when you go near them. Um, They can cause
TVs.
TVs. They can cause a song to come on the radio. You turn on the radio and there's that special song that's meaningful for
Right.
you. They can make mechanical clocks stop. So they have a lot of these things. So pennies, feathers,
Yeah.
synchronicities where you just suddenly, oh, look at that license tag, and it's your loved one's name. You
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, they're nudging you. They're getting your attention. They're saying, look up, look up. You know, I did this just for you. Look up.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a whole lot of that. They do find that's easy that way. Why don't they show up physically? Well, occasionally they do show up ephemerally, where you get a vision of them,
Right.
and
And
that
I've
takes some.
had that. I've had that
Yeah,
actually when my dad died. I saw him before he
yeah.
left, which I felt was a real blessing. But
Hmm.
that was, you don't hear that very often. And I was shocked when I saw him, but he did the wave and said goodbye, letting me know he was okay. And that was a real
Yeah.
blessing. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, my mom's second husband, he had a stroke. He was in the hospital. She was in a motel nearby. And
Right.
contrary to what the doctors were trying to hold out hope, but it was a false hope. And about 5 in the morning, something caused her to wake up. She looked at the foot of the bed and he was standing there.
Yeah.
And he held his hands sort of like this, and
Yeah.
kind of leaned towards her with a smile. And they
Oh,
disappeared. And then the
yeah.
phone rang and the nurses said he's gone.
Yep. And
And
it's a blessing because
it's a blessing.
it really is. Gosh, that gives me chills because it's a cool thing. And I want to bring it up because, some people see these things and they just fluff it off. You're like, oh, that's not real, but it is.
Well, if you ask an average person on the street, do you believe in ghosts? Have you seen a ghost? Most of them, they'll deny it.
Right.
If you give them a random survey where they're anonymous, about 80% will respond yes.
Yeah. Really quick, we've got probably maybe 3 minutes left of the show,
Yeah,
but I know that you are able to go to other realms and that you've helped other um, species with
yeah.
different things. Can you talk about that real quick? I just find this fascinating.
One of the first ones, it was is very humorous. So some spiritual beings came to me and said, Dave, we need your help doing a healing with another alien race. I said, okay. And they said, and you're going to have to control your emotions because they look very different.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And they said, you're going to be tempted to laugh. You got to stifle that. I said, okay. I show up in this great big hospital ward and I'm huge compared to them. And they all look like June bugs in hospital beds. And
Wow.
that's a sentient species.
Okay.
And so I help them with their epidemic to heal and get over that and to essentially cause the fire to go out on their pandemic. But seeing little June bugs in hospital beds, I mean, that
That's
was
crazy. Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, it's just so interesting that they ask you to help. Now, so my question to you is, before we get out of here today,
yeah.
can you help with the COVID? Is there anything you can do or have you attempted to?
I've been working with it, and
Okay.
I do think the COVID is evolving naturally. I think we're trying to accelerate that so it becomes less transmissible and less serious on its effects. So
Okay.
doing that. I also think, though, that COVID is part of, if you look at the astrology for 2020,
Right.
this is a crazy year with all the retrogrades and all the eclipses and things.
Mm-hmm.
And where, nobody can ever identify when you're changing like from Pisces into Aquarius, but I really feel like we're at the edge now where we're really going into Aquarius, and serious stuff is happening to cause people to sit up and take notice and to spiritually grow
Wake up.
and
Yeah.
to make a choice to essentially man up and you
Yeah.
know take on the challenge rather than retreating.
Right. Exactly. Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure to have you on
Oh,
the
this has
show.
been fun.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell
thank you so
everybody.
much.
Oh, you're welcome. Tell everybody one more time how to get in touch with you, please.
Yeah, go to my website, www.davethemystic.com. And there's a mailer there. Let me know what you need or what you'd like. And
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Hey, you guys, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will see you next week. Have a terrific week and take care.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. devotion can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week, and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
'Cause you can achieve your goal.